There were a lot of unknowns, a lot of logistics that we were working with, and my office was key in all of that coordination, much as the major talked about trying to get information about this incident and event, trying to get information about logistics, and trying to send information back out that would be helpful to people. By the way, we still had runners on the course, folks. What do you do with all those 30,000 people on the course to start? 30,000. You're 4 hours in, there's probably half still on that course, I'd say. Probably half, 15,000 people, somewhere on that. This is, behind that crowd is Kenmore Square, where Fenway Park is, that I just described with the crowd and all that. These cops jump in the middle of the street. Whoa, whoa, whoa. These cops don't even know what's going on. All they're being told is stop the marathon. 117 years we've been doing this. Stop the marathon. Well, you gotta hear the radio transmission. You want me to what? You know, I mean, they're a mile away from the explosions. And you want to stop, and then you get in. And listen, if I just ran 25 miles, 24 and a half miles, and some cop gets in front of me, bull, I'm gonna run him over. I'm not gonna stop. You know, it was confusion. There was a lot of unknown, a lot of fear, a lot of confusion. This for us was, where do we send it? Where is it safe? What do we do? So we're trying to get information from and give information back out to command personnel on scene about where can we send them. We've got public transportation issues. You know, do we send them down to the tunnels to take the underground? Maybe that's not safe. We don't know yet. How do we get the word to people about where their loved ones might be, or where they can meet up again? So we had hospitals on lockdown. We had SWAT assets respond to the hospitals. We don't know who's in those hospitals, but we also wanted people to know that that's a safe place to be. You're going to be safe. So what I'd like to point out here is, we'll do this. If you look in here, these people look like these are real runners. I mean, they're carrying phones while they run a marathon. I don't understand that. But there are people here talking on a phone, texting, back in this part of the crowd as well. So it just reinforces, again, the value of social media for getting information out. And Cheryl Fiandaca from the Boston Police Bureau of Public Information spoke earlier today on the use of social media during the marathon. That was her area, was primarily responsible for that, but it was an incredible asset for us as this unfolded. So there's more, we get the immediate response for us. What are we gonna do? This is fusion centers, look at, collecting and looking at things. We were not doing a whole lot of fusion, folks, at that point. This was event. We were under attack. So this was more operational, tactical, while not dismissing the responsibilities we have to partner law enforcement agencies, the community, the private sector. So we were struggling with all of these different challenges. And by the way, my staff in our office is probably all in their mid-20s. And a lot of them are from out of state that took jobs, and they were scared. They didn't know what was going on. What's happening? They're not cops, they're analysts. And they were just, what's going on? What do we know about this? So right away, I pulled people together and did my best Al Hag for the moment. I said, right now, I'm in charge of this. This office is mine. Nothing happens in this office unless it gets communicated with me, through me, so that we all know what's going on. We were supporting a unified command center, and we had on-scene generals running a battlefield. So I wanted to make sure that we were giving them the most effective information, but I also wanted to make sure that we were not losing track of all of our responsibility in the fusion role or in the communication role. And the fusion, I would say it's more communication coordination is what we were really tasked with for this event. We had cell coverage issues. The police department did not shut down cell service. We overloaded cell service. Phones just went dead. Trying to communicate, the radio traffic was incredible on the police radio. Trying to call commanders on their cell phones to talk to them, calls weren't going through. So we became an island unto ourselves in my office, and the frustration became evident very, very quickly that people needed something, anything, and they were looking for maps. It was talked about, the major talked about it as well. And I hope the similarities of the things that the major talked about and the demands on them for resources, information, maps, and how valuable would those maps be? Because now we needed to look at critical infrastructure. Do we still have threats out there that we need to be protected? We've got major utility transformers right in that area. We have the Prudential Tower, the John Hancock Tower. We have subway stations under where that explosion occurred. What other vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure do we need to be prepared to protect? So this is how we broke it out in the office. Dave Carabin, the director of the BRIC, took over a role for overseeing the technology piece of it, for mapping and for getting the chief was right away. One of the first things he asked us for on seeing Chief Linsky was a list of critical infrastructure in that area. The analysts that we have working there and the work that was done in my office was able to produce that very quickly to allow them to deploy some assets to start hardening some of those targets and do some assessments. We remained operational throughout the whole course of it. One of the things I had to do was get in touch with my field teams. Some of them in the room right now. You know, when you see a blast like that, you say, geez, you know, we're lucky we didn't have more dead people up there. We're very lucky. So here's some of the challenges we faced that I think it's important to cover. We had this fusion center responsibility, yet we're an operational component. As a real-time crime center, we're co-located, but when everything hit the fan, it's work time. This is go time. There is no collection. There's no, you do what has to be done and you support everything. And you're triaging a million different masters at that time, trying to prioritize and do some of those things. So some of what we talked about, and I'll get into the lessons in a second, but plan for that. Plan that when this happens, because if it hasn't happened to you, it will. It's going to. Whether it's Hurricane Sandy that hits you with very little notice but devastates you, or it's a bombing. It's going to hit you, a school shooting. It's going to hit you. That's why we need to have these tools and partnerships in place, in my mind, is because that was the key for anything that we were able to do that day, is we didn't have to go make relationships. We didn't have to make and open communication channels. We had them. And we do it every day. This, and I like to tell everybody when they visited us since the marathon, this was not, except for the extraordinary circumstances and extent, this was a normal day in my office. This is what we do when a gang kid kills another gang kid in the city. We do this. We're good at it. We just had to do it to an exponential degree that day and the following days as the demands increased. So these are the things that we were looking at. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Tactical versus fusion versus investigative. We had people boots on the ground looking for information to make decisions right now about personal safety and how we're going to handle this. We're also looking at it. We need to communicate outwardly to law enforcement partners, to regional and nationwide, because this is an act of terror suspected right away. We're starting to look at this. We have a responsibility to start to try to get something. We just didn't know anything. What do we tell New Jersey? What do we tell Rhode Island? What do we tell California? We don't know what to tell you because we don't even know what this is yet. So we're struggling with that fusion, and it was my decision at that point, that's going to need to take a back seat until we know something accurate to put it out the proper way and then Dave Carabin took over again. Part of that role was Dave Carabin looking at the external communication needs and some of the things that we could do. We also had investigative support because the JTTF and others were on the ground as well, and this investigation started while the dust was still in the air. So there were a lot of things that we were being asked to do, so we had to break out a lot of different responsibilities in the office. Other responsibilities, by the way, in the midst of all of this, over the course of a few days, we had a presidential visit where we had like suspects on the run. We didn't know who did this. We had no idea what was going on. And the President of the United States is going to come in for a non-denominational memorial event with all the heads of political heads and leaders, community leaders. That's really cool. People like to see the president. For those of us in this business, that's an incredible nightmare and a task. We had not slept in 2 or 3 days. Now we get a presidential visit that we gotta look out for. And then, by the way, after that, the vice president came in. We welcome that. It was great that they did. But for us, all of our EODs, SWAT assets, everybody that works at these events had to now stop what they were doing and shift gears and do some of these. So we had a lot of challenges with that. Motorcade movements, we were involved in all of that stuff. So you really was dynamic and shifting. So the lessons learned, as you're planning, practicing, as you're sitting here right now, please assume on every plan that you have that this will happen. This is going to happen to you. Whether it's a school shooting, whether it's a bombing at a major event, whether it's a major disaster that displaces millions of people, you're going to need, in my estimation, you're going to need planning and practice. Don't wait for